Hi, my name is Jay, and welcome to part 2 of me redesigning my old childhood OC. This is part 2, so I'm going to quickly break it down for you if you don't know. I have 3 characters that act as a main trio in my OC story, and I decided that every single one of them needed a revamp in their designs. In the last video, we redesigned Leakai, and that was super fun. You should go watch that. And in this video, part 2, we are redesigning Ima. I don't mind Ima's design. I don't think it's awful, but when I look at her old character sheet, nothing about that makes me want to draw her. So that's what we're doing today. We're taking my beloved characters, all of the art progress I've made over the years, and combining them and just revamping their designs because I think they deserve it. To start this process, you guys know the drill, okay? I went to Pinterest. This is the board I created when I was trying to find ideas to brainstorm with, and I think it was a good starting point, but obviously we had to get sketching. Before I sat down and fleshed out all my thoughts, I just drew a quick headshot of Ima so I could see what she looks like in my style now, just because it's been so long. And it ended up looking like this. I kept parts of her design and I completely took out other parts, which we'll get into later, but this is what she looks like. And then it was time to actually brainstorm some of my ideas, so I put down some of my favorite pictures from the Pinterest board I made for her and turn them into actual ideas. I know Ima needs to have really messy, choppy hair. She probably cuts it herself or doesn't cut it at all. I want her to have like cooler accessories, a tattoo on her wrist, and some scarring like she already has. I thought about giving her some alternative makeup, but I go back and forth on this throughout the whole video because I don't know if makeup really suits her. I thought about adding some piercings to her design, and Ima, where she comes from, will also get more into this, but it's a very steampunky theme, and I don't think you got that from her old design at all. So I really wanted to zero in on that vibe. As far as things I kept, I nixed everything except for the pink hair, some sort of burn scars on her skin even though I changed the place. I want her roots to be showing, and yeah, that's basically it. And once I had this, I was ready to move on into the actual meat of this video and actual redesign. Before I did that though, I had a little bit of fun with Ima's hair. I sketched this sheet up of what her natural hair looks like, what it looks like when she bleaches it, and what it looks like when it's fully dyed. And then after that, I wanted to get a better grasp on what her hair even looks like. I knew that Ima had super long hair, but I wanted to change it up a little bit. So I started messing around with what like shape language I guess I could use with it. And basically Ima's hair is very long, but it gets thinner towards the bottom, so it kind of looks like a triangle. Anyway, I just sketched this up so I could have that in my mind when I was actually designing her. Okay, we're gonna get started into what you all actually came here for today, which is me actually sitting down and redesigning this character that I've had for so long. These videos are really challenging for me to make because when it comes to character designing, I normally just run in head first and I'm like, okay, this works. And that's a habit that I want to break, so I'm really trying to break down every single piece of all of my characters' designs, and it's worked out well so far. When it comes to Ima, I was never fully happy with her design, and it's honestly because she was never supposed to be a character. I made Ima a long time ago when I got tired of all the diluted colors that I was using, and I just wanted to do something bright and fun, and I made this sort of like off-the-wall character with crazy hair and a bunch of bright colors, and you can tell even in her like newer-ish designs that I was still holding on to all these like bright colors and speaking to more of what Ima used to be and not the character that she could be. So for these videos, I really want to sit down and make sure my character designs match my story, which is important for any character design that's outdated. For this first section, I focused on designing an outfit and narrowed down what parts of her design that I was going to keep or add to the character chopping block. And to understand this, I had to figure out what about Ima's design was making me unsatisfied in the first place. One of the glaring issues is that Ima, when it relates to my story, is in a trio where they come from 3 completely different regions, and Ima is from a big city that runs completely on man-made machines like a steampunk metropolis. And Ima's old design never read steampunk to me in any shape or form, and it didn't read that to anybody else either because it wasn't steampunk, which is so insane to think about because steampunk is probably the easiest aesthetic to come up with designs for. So to make a character that fits this steampunk environment, I wanted her to look like what she is. Ima is an inventor, and as previously stated in my last OC redesign video, all of my characters have abilities. Ima's is a little different. Her ability is more symbolic. It's like the idea of an ability, like the abilities of friends that we made along the way, like Rampo from Bungo Stray Dogs. And it is vague on purpose, but it helps her create these big machines and come up with things because she's an inventor and a thinker sort of character archetype. So when it came to designing her, I muted down a lot of those bright colors that didn't really make any sense for a character like Ima. Ima isn't necessarily a bright character. She's so serious and logical and sort of an observer. I kept her pink hair because it's a staple and important to the story, but her roots have grown out more to serve as a way for people to know that this character has lived on her own for a while and is more focused on logical things than material things or beauty. Ima's wildly bright design has a lot to do with how she even became a character. I specifically made Ima because I wanted to draw a random character with this big wild hair that was just a bunch of bright colors because I never used super bright colors in my art, and she was first used as sort of an escape from that in a way, and then I just really liked how she ended up turning out. So over the course of years, she slowly actually became a character, and you can see those inspirations still like bled through to her design now, even though it doesn't make any sense. So I'm letting go of my nostalgia for the sake of a good character design. As far as her outfit, I mostly used the inspirations that I had found. She has this ratty old sweater that has a bunch of cuts in it, one because she wouldn't be able to afford a new one if it got ripped by a machine or just overall inventor work, but also it adds a stylish factor that I want Ima to have. I also gave her these jeans that can speak very Y2K. They're like flared jeans with a little design printed onto them, like my reference photo. So it kept that cool vibe that I wanted her to have, but they also look handmade and worn. Best of both worlds. I just wanted steampunk in a way that wasn't like typical steampunk. Additionally, I'm not the best at drawing shoes, but they're there. I kept Ima in a sort of heel because I think you can have a lot of fun with them, and it reads steampunk to me in a way with like all the straps and stuff if I was ever to fully design them. She also almost always had this jacket when I used to draw her, so I kept it because I think it would make sense and it'd be practical, but I changed it to a dusty brown instead that sort of matches her eyes. The old one was this like super bright, vibrant blue that had no other purpose. Blue is more Leakai's color, so I don't know why it was so present in her old design, especially because Ima was always like pink or brown because of her hair and eyes. I think once again that's her old design coming out to haunt me, where it was just a bunch of bright colors that were there for no reason, that have no symbolic value. We really like symbolism here on this channel, if you could not tell. I also wanted to play up the whole steampunk inventor thing because that's what she is. So she has random straps she could put tools in on her like arms and her shoulders, because I think it kind of gives her a robotic vibe also, because they're like kind of at her joints. Not really, but that's where my head was at. No story spoilers, but that is definitely on purpose, as well as just some goggles to really push the steampunk as much as possible. She needs eye protection, so I also wanted her to fit in with my other characters who wear normal clothes, so I didn't push it too much. I needed her to look practical more than anything because that's the type of character she is. So it's not like crazy steampunk with like all these cool things and like top hats and gears and stopwatches. It's just steampunk in a way where she creates machines, that sort of thing. Her hair is also purposefully long. It would probably get caught in machines in the real world and be a big issue, but in my made-up OC world, where the rules abide by my brain, we ignore that for the sake of hair symbolizing memories, or holding memories, really. And Ima holding her character's memories is what makes her important to the story. So that's always been on purpose, and it's not gonna change. I was actually really happy with how her outfit ended up looking. I think it fits her so much better. I don't know if it reads directly steampunk, but it definitely reads better to what her character is than her old outfit. And it fits with Leakai's redesigned version as well, so I think I did an okay job. I've also been ignoring the scars that are on the side of her body, but we're gonna get into those next because I had to fully flesh them out. For the next part of the redesign, I had to establish and revamp Ima's scarring and her tattoos, which needed an overhaul because that part of her story had a complete direction change. In Ima's old design, she had acid burns all over her entire body in random places, and it related to an incident in her backstory. Not only has that incident changed, but I felt like the old scars looked so muddy and added zero contrast whatsoever. Sometimes you couldn't even see them. So for the redesigned version, these scars are only on one side of her body and look almost bleached and brighter. A big part of Ima's backstory is her upbringing, where she was trapped in a place where she was a borderline lab rat, so the scarring is a direct consequence of that arc for Ima, but my main goal was to make it less messy and, well, visible against her warmer skin tone and pink hair. And I also just wanted it to look a little more interesting, so it has more intricate designs and it just looks cooler on her skin. Then I sketched out a back angle so I could work out specifically what the scars looked like on her back and shoulder, because this part has importance. Ima has lots of symbolism in her character and little motifs that add character archetypes that I personally love. And one of those is a sort of bird in a cage character, a character that would spread their wings if they could and long for it in a way, but are stopped by outside forces, and that's what Ima was when she got her scars. I never really played around with wings in designs, but I saw some inspiration that made me want to, so the scar carries over to her back and the shape is supposed to resemble a broken wing or just a wing in some way. I really liked this idea when I was coming up with it and fleshing it out more in my brain, and it made Ima more interesting and open routes for more character exploration in her story and future versions portions of her, I felt like I really broke through with this portion specifically, and I was happy with it. It was time to move on from scars and focus on what tattoos Ima has. The first one has always been present in her design, but I never drew it because I could never decide, but after lots of thinking, we got somewhere that I was happy with. Like I mentioned, Ima grew up in a lab, and it wasn't just her. There were many subjects being worked on with different abilities, and with this in mind, when I was young and fresh-faced, I always pictured Ima having a serial number or a barcode on her wrist. I wanted to talk about this because it's something I wanted to completely scrap, but still needed to keep something to resemble it. When I was 12 years old and designing OCs, this part was obviously inspired by things probably along the lines of Stranger Things or whatever else I was watching, and the worldly knowledge of what tattoos like this can mean were not present in my brain. But when you're making characters you want to share with the world, you have to think about what their designs will say and what people will think when they see them. And I hit 2 roadblocks when I was thinking about how to incorporate this idea that I was set on adding. One, I think this aspect has been overplayed for me. I don't want her to be numbered anymore because it seems boring and obvious and kind of pointed and tacky for my story personally, which relies on a show not tell style of writing. If your characters have this part in their design, that's fine, I'm sure it works. For my story personally, I was over it. Second, I'm older now, and with age comes knowledge about what happens around me, and these types of tattoos have real life implications no matter how cool or edgy they can seem to a 12-year-old edgelord who just wants to make interesting characters. There are victims with tattoos like the ones I had made up when I was younger, and that didn't relate to the character I wanted to write and has nothing to do with her story. And I don't want anything I make to ever come off as unempathetic to the real world around me, no matter what universe my OCs are in. So here's where we are. How do I add this in a way that I like and am comfortable with? You guessed it, folks. A symbol! I traded in the old ideas and came up with something more vague and symbolic. A barbed wire tattooed around her wrist. Not only did this feel better to me, it fit with Ima's caged bird character archetype, and all of the characters at this lab could have this tattooed onto the wrist and it could still symbol the same things. I also got a chance to play with the steampunk and draw this work glove that Ima uses with a bunch of different references, and while trying to figure out how to show the glove and the tattoo at the same time, I decided to keep it covered and just kind of make a key to what the tattoo looks like, because in the story, Ima would always keep this reminder hidden anyway. On top of that, I added some gear tattoos tattooed onto the side of her ribs and on her like thigh area. I thought it looked steampunk, I thought it looked cool, and I think Ima would have these sort of tattoos just for the style aspect of it. I'm going back and forth on whether I'm keeping these, but I think they look good, so far they're a part of her design. But yeah, I like how everything turned out in the end. I wanted to focus on her wrist tattoo like a lot in this video for some reason because it took up so much of my brain while I was redesigning her. It was probably the hardest thing that I had to do. And I just wanted to explain where my brain is at because this is a real part of the character redesign process and that's what you guys are here for. Either way, we're moving on. Last portion of this character design is completely unscripted, so complete apologies in advance. Either way, I always like to add a side profile when I'm drawing characters now because I want to see what it looks like. Hers came out looking super weird. I don't know if it's her hair or the eye placement. I don't know. Most important part of her side profile is that her nose is a little bit scrunched up. That is on purpose. Please trust and believe. And then the last thing I added, when I was doing Likai, I drew out all of his accessories because they were important. Ima doesn't have any crazy accessories that are really important to her, but in the story there are these journals that are very important. And as I mentioned earlier, Ima is sort of like the memory keeper, and she could even be considered the narrator in some way. Not to give any spoilers because this will be a comic at some point, hopefully. But these journals are important and Ima holds on to them. It's probably her big important prop of the story, and I purposely just made them kind of annotated, and I just wanted to sketch them out in my brain so I could remember this story detail specifically. The journals have a lot in them and it details the entire story and all of the events that happen, and so I wanted to add that, and I even put little annotation, those like see-through things that you put in books when you're annotating, because I thought it would be cute and I thought it'd be fun, and I tried to match them to the characters' colors because I also thought that'd be a cute touch. Only drew them because they're super important and they wouldn't have belonged on anybody else's character sheet between my trio of characters, so obviously Ima the narrator is gonna have the plot of the story with her. And with that, I was finally done with the meat of this video and actually fleshed out every single idea that I had for Ima and everything I wanted to change onto one sheet. The last thing I needed to do was format her character sheet. I was completely happy with how Ima looked. I think when I have a character whose design was just so not them, anything was an upgrade, and I'm actually really happy with how it came out. I think I locked in. This video is a little shorter compared to my last one and kind of straight shot to the point. I have been sick throughout the entirety of making this video, so apologies for that. This was a really fun experience and it made me think about my story a lot more, and it was so nice to see a character who I love so much actually have love and care put into their design. I think the new Ima is a far cry from the old Ima, and I also think that's a good thing, and it makes me super excited to move on to the next video. I have 3 characters in my main trio, and I am purposely saving the last character for last because that video is gonna be a tough one, and it's gonna be probably 10 times longer than this one, so I hope you are excited and I hope you're ready. Thank you for coming with me on this journey if you did. If you stayed here throughout the entire video, thank you so much, and drink some water. Thank you guys again for all the support and for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!